We look good. Hey guys, happy Thursday. Today is Thursday, October 11th, 2018, episode 257 of The TED Show with the beautiful and colorful Patty Sheehan today, Commissioner
Happy
Patty
National
Sheehan.
Coming Out Day.
Happy National Coming Out Day. I mean, I did purple and thought I'd be the bright one. No. So let us know you can hear us or see us. Give us a thumbs up or a heart, because obviously we have Rebecca Cook's on. Hey, Rebecca Cook. I love Rebecca. John Wild's on. So give us a heart, give us a thumbs up, because I want everybody to be able to hear and experience the wonderfulness that is Patty Sheehan. Allie McCarroll's on. So people are popping on. We got a heart from the TED Show, so that's a good sign. That means Natasha. Hi, Natasha. Hi, guys. Wow, superstar. You got superstar. All right, so welcome. Thank you for coming on the show. It's fortuitous, like we said earlier, that it's Coming Out with Pride Week here in Orlando, and today is National Coming Out Day. And if you didn't know, you couldn't miss this awesome jacket. When Patty walked in, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I thought the purple would be insane.
I walked here from City Hall. It was so funny. Everybody's like smiling at me. I'm like, I should wear this every day.
You should. It's a happy jacket. I don't know how you can't be happy when you're in colors like that.
Exactly.
But I appreciate you spending time with me. I know you've got a busy schedule, but you obviously have a lot of love and a lot of fans on here. So give us a little background on you, because I think people know you, and we'll talk about Pulse.
Yep.
People know you from being a city commissioner and being, in my opinion, the face, the voice of Pulse for so many of us. But there's always a background. There's always a, what did Patty Sheehan do before she was Commissioner Sheehan? So give us a little background.
I worked for the Florida Department of Agriculture, and I would have never ended up in government, but I lost my job. I got laid off when I was working at Cardinal Homes. I worked there for many, many years. I worked my way through school there. And I worked for Bob Crawford, the Commissioner of Agriculture, and I fell in love with politics. I mean, I loved being able to help people. And then I moved downtown. I lived in Deltona. I hated it. It was like a 3-hour commute every day. It was driving me crazy.
Isn't that nothing
I bought a house
Deltona, but it's far.
I bought a house at 21. It was like the worst thing I could have possibly done. And I moved downtown. I love living downtown, but you know, I mean, I had this issue. This is funny, with a dumpster next door to me, the property next door, and they would like empty it at 4 a.m. And I contacted my city commissioner, who did nothing. And I said, this is ridiculous. Isn't there like a noise ordinance or something like that? I could do better than this. You know, this person's non-responsive. So I ran for office in 1996. I missed the runoff by 75 votes. And they say,
wow,
you know, politics is like, you know, the only thing that gets some politics out of your blood is embalming fluid. So once I got close, yes, that's actually Betty Carter told me that, the former supervisor of elections.
I love it.
So I did it in 96, threw it together in 90 days, and almost made it. And I thought, well, what would happen if I really stuck to it and really got to know the issues better and things like that? And I ran in 2000 against an incumbent who was not the most responsive city commissioner, I'll put it that way. And I beat him, and I've been there ever since. That's the year 2000. I've been
You're
there
18 years.
18 years. Yeah, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up yet, so I'll just stay.
But
as long as you want me.
But it's so funny. It's so funny the fact that that was the motivator, because I think a lot of us go, gosh, I could do better than my politician or my commissioner or whomever it is, and then we don't do anything about it. It's a lot of hot air. Hey, Diane Bourne. It's a ton of hot air. So did you have in your background, did you have anybody who had been in politics before? Did you have a background in anything political science, or was it just that's the motivating factor? You know,
I didn't. I have a degree in art, which is why I love the art so much.
That makes sense.
I thought I would be an artist. I thought I would be at, you know, some Madison Avenue, you know, ad agency somewhere. I never thought in a million years I would have in politics. I had no interest. I was raised by a conservative Republican and an independent. You know, I just never thought, I just didn't think that way. And I love local government, though. The thing for me is that people go, why don't you run for higher office? I love local. You know, there's no such thing as a Democratic or Republican pothole.
Right.
There's so much toxicity in government, unfortunately, at the national level. It's just gotten worse and worse. I mean, I just don't understand how the national discourse can get any worse. And I just
I'm not sure it can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any interest in that. I want to serve. I want to help people, and I really can get a lot done here.
So, did you, when you first became a commissioner, what was it like? Was it what you thought, or did you have to learn to maneuver through the process?
Well, it was hard. I mean, the first day I went to take my place at the dais, somebody had put up a sign that said Patty Sheehan. Yeah, my placard. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. My signs are all over downtown, but yet they managed to spell it Patty Sheehan.
Patty
showed up
Sheehan?
on the dais. Yeah, which they had. They had it. No, they had it reprinted. But I wish I could kept it.
You should have kept that or taken a picture of it.
I know, right? Everyone is so horrified when it happened. By the time we have like a morning session in the afternoon. By the time the afternoon session happened, it had been replaced. But
I bet that person that wrote that up was probably not having a good day.
Go. Yeah, I don't know. At that point in time, it wasn't very acceptable to be out and be gay. You have to understand it was a very different time 20 years ago.
And isn't that amazing? I don't think people realize how different it was. It sounds like 2000 that we were, it's a new millennia. We've got this whole new thing going on, but it really wasn't that easy either.
It was hard. You could get fired from your job. It was hard to be out. That's why when people go, what's the big deal? I'm like, you don't understand what it's like to think about losing your job. I got demoted when I went to the March on Washington, even though I had taken, my leave time when I got back, because I was in one of the back of the pictures, the people getting on the bus, and and someone had sent it to my boss, and stuff like that would happen to you then. So people don't understand that. And I'm glad to have been a part of that change. I mean, first we did protections for city employees in 2002, and then we did protections citywide, which of course was 8 hours of testimony. And boy, I have to tell you, the opposition.
What was the opposition?
I have to tell you, it was 8 hours. It was 8 hours of testimony twice. I mean, it was like crazy. And the dirty things that these Christian people are coming in and saying that we did all these horrible, weird sexual things, and I'm like, I don't even know where these people come up with this stuff. I've been gay my whole life, and I've never thought of any of this weird sexual stuff that they're coming up with. Eating feces. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Eating feces.
They would say this stuff, and that it's no different than having sex with
animals. What letter is that in LGBTQ?
It was just very odd, very strange. I mean, if anybody just really wants to see something crazy, go back and ask for the tapes from that time. But I just sat there. And I remember clasping my hands, and I'm like, I cannot react, I cannot get angry, I just have to listen to this nonsense, and I did. And then I was worried because it was a 4-3 split. The mayor ended up at the time, it was Glenda Hood, ended up not voting with us, and it was going to be a 6-1, ended up being a 4-3 split. So again, I'm freaking out, thinking, oh my God, we've pushed this forward, and it's not going to pass, because you never want to do that.
No.
So it was very stressful for me, and people think, oh, it was so easy. No, it wasn't. We had to fight. I had to have protection in my office. I freaked out because I got back to my office.
You had to have protection in the office?
Yeah, because these people would come in and they would throw themselves on my desk and talk and speak in tongues and stuff, and it just got really freaky and weird. Because one of the other commissioners was not on my side, and she'd bring people in that was kind of doing crazy stuff. So so it was very heightened security. And I walked in one day and I saw a cooler, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, there's a strange cooler. And I'm calling my police liaison. I'm like, there's a strange cooler in my office. I'm kind of
words you don't normally think you're going to say.
Exactly. And she says, that's my lunch. So here I am so worried, that something's going on, and it ended up being my police liaison's lunch. But when you're worried,
when you're in that, so you already had to fight for it, and then you're still having to deal with it. Even once it passes, I think people don't understand. So you pass the ordinance, you pass the protection. That doesn't mean that the crazies aren't still out there trying to get in and trying to make changes.
Yeah, although I had to have security at City Hall, but the only other time I've had to have personal security is when we put sidewalks in for children walking to school. I had to have 24-hour police protection when the court decision came down, because basically we had to sue for the right to put sidewalks on our own right-of-way. And
why would that motivate people to get at that?
Well,
angry?
I think it was about the gay commissioner. It was a way to make it about something else. Geez. But I had to have 24-hour police protection. People were threatening me constantly. They were driving by my house. That was the scariest time for me, to be quite honest. Sidewalks for children walking to school. And you were going to change my mind on that, because when I was in the 2nd grade, one of my friends got killed by a car walking to school, and I had barely learned to read. And I remember reading that article over and over again because I couldn't believe my little friend was dead. And when something like that happens, it changes you. And and when you are in public life, you should take moral lessons like that with you, that you want to create change in your world. And we were able to put the sidewalks in. And you know what? You used to open up the Sentinel back when people read the newspaper. And you'd hear about 16 kids getting killed walking to school. You don't have that anymore. And I'm proud of the city council. I'm proud of us for doing that. And you need to put the necessary infrastructure for public safety.
I feel like the city most definitely, I talk about it on the show a lot, the city is unified, or it feels unified to me. Do you feel like, since you visit other cities, that we're definitely ahead of the game on having that collaborative spirit? And we'll talk about Pulse in a minute, but having that where the city kind of really does support each other. You can have differences, but I feel like the city itself wraps its arms around us.
Well, I think that we showed the world a compassionate, loving, and decent community the way that we all came together. I mean, I haven't been involved with the National League of Cities. When I first got elected, I was very involved with the National League of Cities leadership and the gay, lesbian, local officials group, you know, LGBTQ group, and you know, I did my part, and you kind of get, you know, I did my role, and it's time for somebody else to kind of do their thing, but at the time, it was the hanging chads, remember?
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
You know,
tried to block it out.
Oh my God, people were laughing at us, and I'm like, you know, I go and I'm like, oh God, and of course all these other cities were doing these amazing things, and I felt kind of like the dumb kid, you know? I'm like, oh, these other cities have medical marijuana, and we're talking about gay rights. I can't even get anything down here. And, you know, now to have seen how much things have changed here, and to have been able to be a part of that, you know, and I have never been more proud of my city in terms of the way that people came together after Pulse. The massacre happened, and the way they embraced the families, the way that we raised the money. I haven't seen that happen anywhere else, but I think it was because we showed the leadership, and we showed that we were going to make sure we took care of everyone. And people respond. You know, as much as there's this national rancor and negativity, people respond. They want to be part of something good. They really do, and I believe that, or else I wouldn't.
I would get choked up. Well, I mean, obviously it was an emotional time, and I want to talk about the first, but I would see the lines for blood.
Yeah.
The city, people just dropped what they were doing to do the right thing and to come together. And I don't think it could have happened. Maybe it could have happened in another city, but I feel like because we had already begun to build that collaborative spirit, that when it happened, we all really came together. That's the time where everybody rolled up their sleeves and said, all right, what is it going to take?
Yeah.
So in the beginning there, we talked a little bit about how it had to be organized. We talked about Camping World. We talked about, but to be able to bring that together, what was that like?
Well, you know, I turn my phone off at night, because if I don't, I would never get any sleep, because I have a very active constituency. And I'm proud of them.
You do.
I'm glad they are active, but I turn my phone off at night so I can get some sleep, because I think rest is important. I went ahead and picked up my phone that morning, and my phone had been blowing up, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And then I looked, right then the Chief of Staff, Frank Billingsley, called me, and he said, are you sitting down? And I said, Frank, what the hell's going on? And he said, 21 people have been shot at Pulse nightclub. And first thing on my mouth was, where's Barbara? He goes, we don't know anything yet. And I said, I'll be right down there. And so I absorbed that, and I thought, and I went out a little bit on social media to say what people were saying, and they were saying, let's have a vigil. And I thought, you know what? We cannot have a vigil, because I know that the police are dealing with this mass shooting. We cannot possibly protect it, because I'm used to dealing with come out with pride. I know with the amount of security and things you have to have. So I composed a message before I went out. I said, please, let's hold off on the vigils. Let's make sure the police can do their job. Give blood if you can. And I signed off on it. I said, we are in Orlando united in love, on that original Facebook message. And I thought, you know, I just think that was divine, you know, flowing through me, because everything that happened was, I don't even know where I came up with some of that eloquence, but I just feel that I was channeling the 49 angels, because, you know, I think you're tested in times of trauma, and it was hard. I mean, when I got there, I saw the blood everywhere, and George Estevez, my friend, called me, and he was in tears, and he said, Patty, tell me it's going to be okay, and I'm like, I can't. I said, I can't, George, it's really awful. And like I said, the thing I'll never forget was the places you could see where people had fallen, and they had been dragged. They dragged them to safety. They'd fallen in the street, and there was blood everywhere. And the police and the first responders were, I'd never seen them so dejected, you know. And it was a horrible time. And then I got mad. You know, and I do things through anger. I got mad at all these politicians that were showing up in their big SUVs and stepping in the blood and announcing their re-election campaigns, and you know, and saying that this was not the time to talk about guns. And I just said no. And then they didn't want to talk about LGBTQ people. They didn't want to talk about the fact this had happened to the gay community. And I'm like, no, you are not doing that this
How
way.
was that? Did you feel like there was enough support around? I know it didn't really matter at that point because this is in your heart. This is
Nobody
what's
was
on your
saying
heart.
gay, but that bugged me. And I was in the background, and nobody said gay. And even the mayor kind of had to say, look, we have to say this. And so the press conference happened. Nobody said this had happened to the gay community. And I said, you know what? No, this is not happening. So then Representative Thompson got up and she said a few words, and I said, no, I have to say this. And then I went right up to the microphone, and they were still running, and I just said, you know, this is my community. I'm a member of the LGBTQ community, and we will not be erased. And this happened to us. There's a hole in our heart, and we will not be silenced and will not be erased. And
I remember that.
yeah, and then all of a sudden people wanted to interview me because I knew I said, this is a club that I've gone to, you know.
Well, that was on, so that became viral, that particular speech, I think.
It was,
and so then that's what, in my intro, I said that you, for me, and I think for a lot of people, you became, when I think of the Pulse Massacre, the first thing I think of, or one of the first things, I can't help but think of you. I feel like we all looked to you to give us the real update, give us the real emotions, really talk about the things that nobody seemed to want to talk about.
And that was the thing too. You have to have goals. When you're in a media situation like that, you have to have goals. My goal was to raise as much money and help for those families because I knew they were going to need it. As much money as possible because we had a GoFundMe and Equality Florida and you know, we did the one fund to the city, and we expected maybe to raise $1 million. We raised $1 million in 24 hours, and then all of a sudden we're like, eek, what are we going to do? You know,
right.
And then Ken Feinberg and the Compassion Fund and all these people who had been victims of gunshot violence came here to help us to set it up. Mr. Feinberg is an angel as far as I'm concerned. He's one of the most amazing people. He's actually an attorney. He has a group of people that go where all these gunshot violence things happen. And they helped set up the fund to benefit the families. We had a community group that served to figure out how to distribute the funds. All of that money went to the families, and I'm proud of that. The families and the victims. And they needed that. They needed that for their own mental health. A lot of those kids lost their jobs. They needed help. And I was so impressed with how people from all over the nation, I got letters from, you know, veterans who said, you know, I'm going to fly a rainbow flag under my American flag. You know, it was just so incredible. There were people that were sending me little handmade things like keychains. There's this lady says, I can't keep my eyes off the television, and she sent me these Love Always Wins keychains.
Do you feel like it was that people began to, nationally, you were talking about the vet that said, I'm going to fly a rainbow flag. I feel like there was also a shift. I feel like the world was really watching us and seeing how we responded.
Yeah.
And then they did respond. The world responded back with so much love.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't see this stuff until late. You have to remember, I was on the street for like 10 days. And I went home, I fed my dog and cat, and I went back out, you know, because I felt it was important, because I knew we had a limited amount of time to try to raise money and to help. And I was actually out there helping kids. I mean, the kids were showing up. The young people that were in the club were showing up shell-shocked, and they didn't know where to go. And I said, go to the center, 943 North Mills Avenue. They have counselors there. So promise me you're going to, oh my God, the worst one though. There was this young man, and he came up to Eddie and I, and he said, I can't take, my friend's been shot. He's in my apartment. I'm like, why? He said he's an undocumented. I turned to Eddie. I'm like, Eddie, what the hell does undocumented mean? Because I didn't know. It's not something I dealt with.
No.
And he says it means he's your illegal commissioner. And I said, no. You have to take him to the hospital. ICE is not going to come. You need to take him to the hospital. And Eddie, tell him in Spanish too. And then you need to go to the center and get counseling. Promise me. I took this kid by the shoulder. Promise me. And it was just interactions like that. There were people that were coming to the barricades from the neighborhoods, and I was worried, oh my God, they're going to be complaining about the traffic, right? They were like, no, they were crying, and they wanted a hug. I mean, it was just the feeling of wanting to be together, and I think that's Orlando. That's the essence of Orlando, when things were really, really rough and horrible, that we wanted to hug and help one another, and I think that inspired people all over the world. The Eiffel Tower was written, was it rainbows, and you know, I mean, the Taliban wasn't a rainbow for God. I mean, who ever thought it would be possible?
Nobody.
Nobody. I mean, it was amazing the way that people responded all over the world, and that we blew away all fundraising records to help them, and I'm proud to have been a part of that. But I have to tell you, there were city employees that left their desks for months. They are the great unsung heroes of all of this. They went to Camping World stadiums and they helped out with immigration or funeral arrangements or all the things that we had set up, that were things that you couldn't,
Because we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
You don't think that because you've never been through this before, and this was such a unique massacre situation that there were so many things on the ground that you had to figure out how to bring together.
Exactly. You had young people who had to be moved out of their apartments. You had pets that had to be taken care of. Everybody, the pet alliance came out there. Everybody did their part in a beautiful way, and I think I'm proud we were part. I joke and I say Mayor Dyer was the head and I was the heart, because he was brilliant with thinking that through. But Mayor Dyer, it was an amazing partner with that. But he's not as emotional as I am, so I think we kind of complemented one another that way, because you have to have the heart too. Because
you do.
And I remember people saying, "Please smile, Patty. Would you please smile?" And I couldn't. I mean, I was distressed. I got to meet 38 of the 49 families during that, because it was a job that nobody kind of wanted, and I kind of gravitated towards helping the families. And when I set the wreaths up, the families would come into City Hall to see the wreaths, and I would meet them, and they'd tell me their story, and they'd tell me about their loved one. And I needed to be there I needed to do that space for them, because they needed, and I learned the stories of their kids, even though they weren't my friends. I feel that they're my friends now because I got to know their stories of their families.
Now, how did it change you? I know it had a great impact on you, but as you moved forward, as the months started to go forward, how did it change you? Did it change how you approached your government job? Did it change how you approached family and friends and the media?
Well, I got sober 2 years before this happened, and I thank God that I had, because if I hadn't, there would have been no way I would have been able to handle this. And dealing with something like that completely sober and aware was an experience, but it allowed me to be present and to feel it and to deal with it. Yeah. And that was really important for me. The hardest thing, oddly enough, when things started slowing, and I'm just now getting back to normal. People don't realize it's been 2 years, almost 2.5 years, but I'm only just now getting back to normal.
Sure. Because there's really no time frame.
Well, because it's it's ongoing. I know these families. I care about them. I know these kids. I care about them. They have things that happen. They have breakups that for them are catastrophic. That for normal young people are catastrophic. But for them, it triggers all of their. And I hate the word trigger. I wish we could have something.
A different word.
I know something other than gunshot words.
We'll have to thesaurus that.
Yeah, yes. We'll have to thesaurus something. But that they went through so much, and I went through so much with them, and. But I think I'm proud that we were all together, and I was there in an emotional space that I could help others, and I'm glad that I could. But I'm glad I was sober, and
because you're out there, you're still the face, the heart. It still impacts you as a human being, and so. Yeah. But you have to figure out how to still compartmentalize that, still do your job, still help the families, because if you let it could completely overtake.
When I did one of the first interviews, I was with Michelle Meredith, and I just lost it, and I said, I can't do that. And people were like, well, why can't you just cry, Patty? And I'm like, because I can't. I have to get it together so I can communicate effectively. Right. And so what happened was I did have to compartmentalize and come back to it, and I did go to grief counseling. I tell anybody, don't be... there's no harm in admitting that you need help. I mean, that was a lot for everybody to deal with. We had counselors come into City Hall because all of our employees had been dealing with so much. There's no shame in admitting that you need help, especially when you go through something as traumatic and awful as that. And we experienced that as a community together. And I still tell people, if you need help, it's okay. Go get some.
Well, I think I read an article. Maybe it was a Facebook post. We love you too. We were talking about you, Eric Rawlings, by the way. I read a Facebook post.
Love you, husband. He's my husband.
He's your husband.
He's my husband.
He's a great husband to have.
That's gay husband for those of you who don't know what that means.
But I read this post where people were almost like, you didn't know anyone there, so why are you feeling it? I know you're in the city, but because people were posting how it really impacted them. And I think people don't understand that if you were here and involved, it was just, we all felt it. It was this heartbreaking thing to go through and to watch and to feel that passion and empathy and sympathy and all of these things. You felt it because the city itself, the area, we really did embrace each other. And so even if you didn't know one of the 49 or weren't impacted by it specifically, you still felt it.
Well, and it had so many ripples throughout the community, because even though there were 49 killed, there was also 68 injured. The numbers went up because of the number of kids that were afraid to go to the hospital, which is horrifying if you could even imagine. You know, and you had all the people that were in the club that were impacted by it, and I had friends that didn't go out that night, that were supposed to be there and decided not to go because they were tired. People who took shift changes. You have Shane, who got off his shift and was upset about Christina Grimmie and went to Paul's and then got killed.
Yeah.
You have all these stories that impacted people because they were their friends or they just knew of them, and it was just, and the Shane story is so tragic because you think, oh my God, he went out to relax because you're so upset about Christina Grimmie, and then he ends up being a gunshot violence victim. I mean, how horrific is that? And his family is lovely too, by the way. You know, his father, Stephen, is just one of the most lovely people you could meet, and misses his son desperately. You know, but his own church wouldn't even bury him. I mean, it's just, there were just stories like that were just, and there was the other stories, like you know, how one of the young men's father wouldn't bury him. You know, and we had to figure out, that was the hardest one for me, because
how do you manage? Because that seems like it would be an easy thing to do, but it's not.
Well, we were going to have him declared a ward of the state, and we're already through that. Don and I were already, Don Price. It's the Sexton of the Cemetery. What a wonderful man, wonderful man, an angel on earth. He really is. We had figured out how to do it, and then finally the sister came forward. The father signed his rights away, the sister came forward, it got taken care of. Wow. And later on, I was talking about it, and I happened to talk to somebody. He goes, yeah, I drove the body down. And I'm like, oh. But I was so glad he got a proper burial. Because things like that were just so horrific that only happened to gay people. You know, that we would get disowned by our own families because that's how they found out. And that's how these families came. Coming out day, that was the worst coming out day ever. That's how a lot of them found out their children were gay.
I think that once the media died down, once it became, again, I'm trying to think of a different word, once the media calmed down, and a lot of times the further we get away from a massacre, the further we get away from something horrific like Pulse, that we begin to forget and we begin to get into our regular mode of, okay, that didn't happen that long ago, or that happened a long time ago and it really didn't. But I feel like the city has not done that. We have really continued to honor the spirit. Well,
the Orlando United Assistance Center is still open for those families. It's very, very important that they still have the ongoing emotional and mental health support that they need. And you know, we got a Department of Justice grant. We're still seeing people at the Assistance Center. I think that's very important to continue that process. And I support them 1,000%. And you know, that's how you move forward. We will heal, and we are healing.
I think we're definitely.
I'm feeling now. You know, the 1 year was very hard. The 2 year was not as hard. You know, I think it's getting better for the families, but they still, I mean, they thought they would be going to their children's graduation from college, not to their funeral. Yeah. And I tell people that, you know, this was the first generation that could get married, and their lives should have been better than mine. And that's the only thing that really kind of bothers me about it still, is that their life should have been better than mine. They shouldn't have lost their lives. And that's the hard thing for me. As an activist, I've always fought for LGBTQ equality, and I love the fact that the next generation, the fact that my nephew says, Aunt Patty, it's not a big deal.
I love it when he said that.
My nephew came out to me and he goes, it's not a big deal, like when you came out, Aunt Patty, like you dinosaur.
But you know, people, you're right. I think we've created a better environment. Yeah. We continue to make progress, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but I feel like we really have made progress. But we still have a National Coming Out Day, which is today.
Absolutely.
And a lot of LGBTQ, they take this opportunity. This is a big day, and Come Out with Pride Week is a big week. This is a celebration and our city, because I feel like we are just we have such a big heart for everybody, not just LGBTQ, but everybody in general. We're very embraceful of other people, of people who think maybe differently than the quote-unquote norm.
Well, I gotta tell you, this is really funny. The little old ladies that live downtown, I love. I have so many senior towers downtown. I call them my little old ladies, but you know, they are who they are. My sexy seniors, they're fabulous. And they, you know, I was worried about how they'd react to some of the road closures and stuff like that as Pride became bigger and bigger. I went to the towers one day, and one of the ladies said, "Oh, girl, those are the best fireworks."
Of course they are. Hello.
They are the best
How
fireworks.
can they not be the best fireworks? Yep. All right, so we're going to share. First of all, thank you for sharing all of that. I think you touched a lot of people. I had to kick back the tears a couple of times there. But I want people to be able to reach out to you. Patty's so accessible. There are many ways to reach her, and I'm going to share all of her contact information. Well, not all the private stuff, but
no, you can't.
The other stuff.
I used to give people my personal phone, but I don't do that anymore.
No, I would not do that anymore. But I know that you motivate people all the time, and I want people to know one of the biggest reasons why I love to have people like Patty on the show is to show you that she's here, she's with the rest of us. So commissioner, yes, but human being first.
Absolutely.
And so I want you to be able to feel like you can reach out to her if you have ideas, and there's a channel for that and a way to do it, but you can see that she has a heart of gold, and she speaks the truth, and she speaks her mind, and she loves Orlando, and I want other people to see that. I've always known that about you. All right, so any parting words of wisdom? Patty.Sheehan@cityoforlando.net is my email, and 407-246-2004 is my office number, and Bill can get a hold of me anytime, any day. He's Bill's
amazing.
Awesome.
Bill is the best.
He really is.
Yes, he is
awesome.
He is my gay assistant, and you know what? Every woman needs a gay man working for her. It's just how it
Is Bill the sunglasses? Is Bill the glasses? Is that what we were talking about earlier?
No.
No, that's different.
That's another one of my gays.
Oh,
I have a whole, the only reason I even look good or smell good or anything is because of all my gay men. It's just how it works. But yeah, you know, I mean, I love Orlando. This is a beautiful community. I love serving you all, and I'll continue to do it. And then if not, I'll figure out what I want to do when I grow up. But I love this community. I love being an artist here. We have a great arts community. We have a loving community. We have it's a cool place to be, and I love Orlando.
And we love you. Thank you for coming on. Love you to pieces. All right, we love you guys. So I'll share up Patty's contact information that she just said to you. Share the show. We want everybody to see the amazing Patty Sheehan. Come on, or not She-Man.
Not She-Man.
Not She-Man.
Now you're going to call me that.
No, but in my mind I'm going to laugh. Oh my God, it's terrible. All right, I love you guys. We'll see you back here soon.
Bye-bye.
Mwah.